is saying the streaming software isn't connected. What? Alright. It's going... Why? Why does it say there's an hour? It's odd.
It's just been recording us the whole time.
What? Alright, let's... Send out links. I have to watch the levels because this is a different microphone setup.
Okay. La 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 la. That's how you check levels. Also, my glasses snapped in half.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say you got
So these
new
are not,
glasses.
these are actually...
Or are they old?
No, these are just random ones from the place that they gave me. Because my backup frames are like also like on the brink of death. Like my previous pair broke too. So I was like, hey, can you fit my lenses into like some glasses? And they were like, oh, they're kind of made for yours. But I was like, can you try? So they stuffed them in these big fat old glasses.
I mean, they look like they work.
Yeah, no, it's great. No, it's I'm really glad they could make it work, because otherwise I would have had a real bad week. But
Yeah.
I'm not used to having thick glasses, so I feel like I'm looking out of like a scuba mask. I've always had like really thin frames.
I know, those are like very thick.
Yeah, I feel like they make me a little extra hipster that...
Now you're just gonna go for even thicker.
Yeah.
See how big a glasses you can get.
Did you send
Get
me
away with?
the thing?
I think so. Maybe I forgot. Oh, oops, I forgot to press send. Oops.
All right.
Somebody's watching.
Who?
I don't know. Whatever. I don't know why it's
Just a random person, and they're like, yeah, it's a live stream. It's not a strange thing to do.
It's a stream. It's alive. All right.
Oh, speaking of hey ya, I actually did listen to Andre 3000's flute thing, and
Yeah.
I really really liked it. That
I was telling some people about that at work today.
Well, it's funny because I didn't like the first song at all. I was like, oh, I really think the flute's a super pretty instrument, and he was just playing like an electronic flute.
Yeah.
I was kind of bummed, but then I realized that he plays like 50 different flutes on that album.
Yeah, if you see him play, he switches flutes around a lot. He has like a whole arsenal of them.
So there's a lot of the songs that are really, really great. All right. Oop, don't. What are you doing? All right.
What the... What? What is this? Hold on. What? Bring that back. Chat disappeared.
The chat has disappeared. We're
Not
experiencing
that there was anybody there.
a minor
there.
technical difficulty.
So now I know not to press this stuff. I
Don't.
wish you could hide that, because top chat, live chat. How does it determine what's top chat?
You know, top chat.
It's like top cat. Alright. Oh. Why is it giving me warnings about the bit rate? How do you even change that? Can't change it there. Oh, it's probably this.
Okie dokie. Well, here we are. Enjoying some very, very, very floral jasmine tea.
There, now I shouldn't be complaining anymore.
Should we hop in?
We may as well start.
Okay. The Craftsman, the American Craftsman movement. Philip, what is it?
The American Craftsman movement is essentially the offshoot of the British arts and crafts movement, which was essentially a reaction to the Industrial Revolution as far as like home decor and architecture goes. Essentially, they looked at mass-produced goods for like furniture and for like building materials. Kind of saw it as something that was pulling out the human element of just daily life. Like the place you live is like built from machines. So they're like, what if we had it just purposely just went back to just like making stuff by hand. Essentially, the difference is in the US it was less about like not being mass produced and much more about just like making things that are produced at large scale not ugly, essentially, because there's a lot of stuff that becomes like kind of ubiquitous across the US, wherever the style, I guess not style, but where the movement has purchase, I guess. In like New York and California. So you have a lot of furniture that's like kind of similar, but because a lot of it's like produced in the same place. So it's different in that regard. The American arts and crafts movement wasn't afraid to like do it at scale. Whereas like the whole point of the British one was to not. It's like make everything like by yourself almost.
Yeah, and the American one has a really, I mean, you just said this, it has kind of a distinct look because it was a movement, kind of like a time and a place with a sort of small group of people, like, doing all the, like, actual stuff.
Basically.
Whereas the British one, like, if you look at a British arts and crafts, there's like a huge variety. You can't really, like, nail it down quite the same. Hero. I do have like a little something that I can.
Oh,
I can go at this
oven
teapot. Yeah. Like a safety suit, since this teapot has tried to kill me.
would be best? I don't have like oven mitts or
You know what? I'll use my jacket.
I could use a sock. I don't know how clean they are.
Gross.
Some Christmas socks. Yeah, I don't have. I probably have like little towels somewhere,
But yeah, so you were saying before we started, it's a good thing to have in mind that it's more of like an ethos than a like specific artistic style.
yeah.
Like there's a lot of different things. There's
We have a slideshow, not a video. So we have different.
Can you see the image?
You should be able to see them. We got different ones. We just haven't gotten around to flipping through them yet. A little bit more of a show and tell thing.
Yeah. So yeah, it's it's the attitude of making stuff by hand, more or less, or
Working with people that do stuff by hand.
yeah, like you said, in the United States they didn't mind like setting up like large shops of artisans.
Yeah, that could produce like a whole bunch of chairs, for example. Oh, yeah, we're not using Christmas socks for anything. It was just a suggestion.
Yeah, I'm not touching no socks.
I could set up my overhead cam.
We don't have any arts and crafts things to set up, but you could watch the distribution of jasmine tea.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't know. We both just think this is neat because the stuff that was made is usually super duper pretty. As we go through, you'll recognize the style of house that kind of came out of this is one of the best. Like, I don't know, it's pretty like common all across the United States. A Craftsman style house, or I suppose like a Craftsman bungalow. It's a very like distinctive look. I grew up in one.
They're very common in California. That's
Yeah.
probably like the main place that they're produced, but they're all over the place.
Yeah, my whole neighborhood growing up was like full of these, or was. But yeah, it's California Craftsman bungalow is kind of like the architecture that came out of it, and that's kind of, I mean, it's kind of neat because it's kind of a look that is native to the United States. That's something we've talked about before. There's not like a lot of things that are. I mean, there are, but not a lot of like. There's a lot of there's a lot of bad architecture.
Yeah.
But this is like a very distinctive house style that is really nice, really pretty, very like cozy.
We can do this for now, I guess. Here, actually.
Wait,
Fun idea.
You should go to the. I know you just did this, but now you should go to the.
Oh, just a second.
Okay, we're doing this.
So you can have at least some kind of visual of what's going on, I guess.
I know things are wild now. This is gonna become an ASMR.
My armpit on a microphone.
Jasmine tea. Yeah, so jasmine tea. It's I was telling Philip when I first had it, I didn't like it. It tastes like it's very, 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 very floral. Tastes like shampoo. But now I really, really like it. It's super refreshing. But it's very interesting. I was not used to eating anything that was like so heavy duty floral, so I was like, this is like something I'd wash myself with. That's how it smells.
Yeah. I was saying when I just smelt it before drinking any, it smelled like jasmine incense, which makes sense. It's jasmine.
Yeah. So
Anyway.
someday when we have everyone together, maybe we should have a little tea party for everybody.
It'd be fun.
We have enough little cups now, I think.
Yeah, we have, what, 6 now?
Yeah, we could totally... No, and I have those other ones.
Oh, and you have more, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we could totally have a tiny tea party. But yeah, it smells like soap. I mean, at first, once you get used to it, it smells really, really nice.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, do we have images to show? I don't know.
Or are we partying with the overhead camera? So take this. Top off.
Yeah. My makeshift, whatever you call this.
You mean your super fancy tea board?
Yep.
Tea serving board?
That's like eventually gonna like disintegrate.
Yeah.
It's already like kind of warped from tea disasters in the past.
Because I spill water and tea on it pretty much once a visit. Which I'm sort of determined not to do that this time.
It's a little bit more risky this time because it might get on my cutting board. Not that
I mean, I'm going to try really hard not to.
Wouldn't survive or anything,
But I like I like this. This is what you call aesthetic, right?
it's getting there. It'll look nicer over time. Right now, this is a cutting board with like a janky piece of hardboard with linoleum on it. I like the circles though. The overhead circles are kind of cool.
Yeah.
That's nicer. All right. Anyway, where were we? With arts and crafts.
Wait, they gotta see. Well, it's not even close to heating up, so never mind.
Is this
I got it sort of cranked up.
Now it is. Now it's full blast. Oh, you can hear it. Next thing we need to do is set up so my shotgun mic is focused in on the teapot, and you can just have a teapot mic.
And hear it rumbling.
Yeah, it clanks and pops.
Well, when we
it's a pretty noisy little teapot.
Yeah, when we talked about in the book of tea, I guess they'd put little rocks and stuff in the bottom of their teapot to imitate the sounds of the wind and streams or something, like that. So you gotta play around with that.
I kind of want to
put little pebbles in the bottom, and as they dance with the bubbles, see if they make anything but a racket.
I feel like if they're heavy enough, yeah, I don't know what that would do. That'd be interesting. I've never thought about trying something like that though.
This could just turn into an ASMR where the teapot is the hero, the teapot's the star. Something like that probably already exists. I don't know. I don't like ASMR, so it's not my... It doesn't tickle my brain or whatever.
I don't. I get it on an intellectual level, but I don't get it I understand what experiencing that is.
Yeah.
But I have a microphone that would be good for it. That I still haven't used a whole lot. Probably use it tomorrow. I'm going to be finishing my last plate for a print. And I'm going to use that.
For the big print?
No, it's just that little one right there.
Still pretty cool.
I just need to finish the one that's going to be for the shadows that are going to be on top of everything. So I've been putting that off for way too long. I just want to get it over with. And then...
Wait, can I touch it? Is this it?
Yes. Yeah, that's the one.
Look.
It's kind of ugly.
It's just cool to see
it's
the process.
Meant to get chopped up. I need to turn on autofocus, but I can't while it's plugged in.
That's okay. That's what we're talking about.
You can see all the areas. Well, it's probably not totally clear, but you can see that there's areas outlined. Those are the things that are going to be kept or cut out, depending on how you look at it. But
just like it, yeah. I know. Like this. So what is this? What are these?
So that one is going to be a 2-color, probably a gradient block with blue and yellow for sky and some things with stones and like vegetation.
There's a little process. I won't show them all, but he's got the whole stack of each.
There's
how many? That's
six.
That's quite a few.
6 is a good amount.
Yeah, that's a lot, isn't it?
For something that size, that's a lot. The one I want to do next, which is going to be considerably bigger, is probably going to be more. I watched this is getting off topic, but it just came to mind. I watched a documentary from like the 60s or something about I can't think of his name now. Hasui Kawase. He's a Japanese printmaker from like early 20th century. He does really awesome prints. And it just went through his whole process. It's very interesting. And it was kind of crazy seeing that the technique I was playing around with to do that one was actually really similar to how he approaches his prints. But also, he has like had a whole studio where it's like there'd be people who just carve things or just print. So he pretty much could just do designs constantly. That's why he has like over 1,000 prints that he's made.
Wow.
Because he doesn't do the whole process himself. It's like all split up. So I don't have the luxury of having like some guy who just prints the stuff for me or cuts out the blocks for me. I have to do it all by myself. Anyway, back to arts and crafts. Doing our own arts and crafts.
So yeah, it's pretty architecture.
Let's look at some interior. Actually, let's look at some exterior stuff.
Yeah, you'll get an idea of what we're talking about.
Here's a pretty good one. So this is sort of a bungalow. It's like a super bungalow. So technically, a bungalow is 1 story, but they started making them 2 story. They usually have kind of like the big front porch with like the pillar type structures on there.
Yeah, and they're chubby little pillars. That's one way you can tell.
Yep.
They're not like long, elegant, classical pillars. They're like pudgy little pillars. They're cute.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like part of its coziness.
Well, it's like you were saying, your house basically is. It's like trying to be.
My house, my current house?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's listed as a bungalow, which is weird.
I think it technically fits the description.
It's kind of like bland, but the house I grew up in Providence, Utah, is pretty
for real.
Yeah, it was like a for real bungalow. Yeah, stocky little pillars. That's one way. I mean, the whole like look of the American Craftsman bungalow is kind of like, it's kind of stocky. They're kind of cute. That's not a.
This one's not a bungalow, but it has some similar elements.
You
can't see my cursor. Here's another one.
Yeah.
Where it's basically the pillars either are like start at like a wall like that, or they're just like the height of the door basically.
Yeah, they don't go all the way to the ground the way that they're like the way that like a classical pillar would. They're like 2/3 pillars. Or like 1/3 pillars.
Or like this one, and the other one was kind of doing that too, where it's like groupings. It's like a bundle of pillars.
Yeah.
Like mini pillars.
And you guys are in San Francisco. There's actually probably oodles and gobs of these, I'm sure. I haven't actually ever been. Though I remember when going up through a nice part of the LA suburbs, there were a ton of these. And again, there are a ton of these there's a ton of these in Utah.
Yeah.
There's some really beautiful examples just on Center Street in Provo. There's some really pretty like Craftsman bungalow style houses.
Yeah. So this is kind of these are like houses generally in that style. These are real stocky pillars on this one.
And that's almost, I think one of the pictures you have, we can really see them because they can get really short and really stocky. But this is almost.
This is
like that like that's like stylized, but you'll see other ones that have like, it's like basically there will be like a brick or a stone base and like a little like nubbin of a pillar on top.
Yeah.
Again, with shape language, if we can think with our animator minds, it's, if you think of like a classic pillar as kind of, I know it's like long and it's elegant, etc., etc. Craftsman pillars are kind of like cozy. They're kind of like cute. Cute's a good way I had to describe them. They're like little gummy bears, like little gumdrops.
Yeah. Yeah, and usually, oh my gosh, my voice is so crazy because of my cough or whatever. But yeah, usually the eave on the roof is like pretty large. There's a lot of overhang. There's a lot of I don't know what you call them, like the little like truss extensions that poke out.
I knew what they were called like 6 months ago.
Those are pretty common on there.
Yeah,
as an element.
because part of it, and it will especially see this kind of inside, I think, but part of like the ethos is you want to see like the craftsmanship. Like
Yeah.
it's sort of like it's got its like work on display kind of.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they like aren't like trying to like, yeah.
House.
So yeah, they're
Well, you can see it a lot, especially if you look at like furniture made. There's a lot of like joinery work, and it's like done where it's like the joinery, instead of like necessarily trying to hide it or anything, it's like very prominent. So yeah, it's the idea of making the handmade nature of the whatever it is more apparent. And also, yeah, there's a lot of like the texture of whatever materials being used is made a major decorative element. Like they don't paint over things. Like they don't paint bricks or stone. They don't paint wood. Like all the wood's like stained
yeah.
and finished that way. So it's like all about seeing the wood grain, seeing like the texture in the brick and like the colors and texture of stone. And then yeah, a lot of the windows, there'll be a lot of stained glass windows. So there's oh, actually let's look at these might have some more to look at house wise.
Oh yeah.
They're very small, but you can also see kind of the floor plan of them, which is cool, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, just speaking generally, I think usually it's a fairly like open floor plan. These kind of came, um, technically, before, oh my gosh, whatever his famous guy.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Yeah. And
He was like right after.
yeah,
basically.
technically before, with his like super open floor plans.
Mhm.
But I think that kind of, because this has been like a long standing thing in the United States, these designs. So I think a lot of these have like a pretty open floor plan. This one doesn't, as I'm talking.
Has a lot of chambers.
Yeah.
I don't know how big exactly.
Oh, there's some cute. There's some of those cute little
Yeah. You
little
got some
columns.
Stubby columns on the brick wall. I mean, yeah, it's not quite open in the same way as Frank Lloyd Wright, like the prairie
Yeah, the prairie houses.
prairie style or whatever.
I just know that, or that was just, I'm just reciting like a tidbit of information that I remember like hearing once, is that a lot of these did. I mean, the one that again, when I was a little kid, the one that I was in was pretty open.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell from looking at this floor plan, it looks pretty open. I mean, there's a lot of wide, like, entryways in between rooms. Like, some of these are clearly not, like, don't have a door there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, I feel like this one's not real. Not authentic to me. It looks like a 3D rendering.
Could be.
I compiled these real quick before this started, so now I'm just noticing that. Anyway, could look at some interior stuff to get more of an idea.
Yeah.
So you can see a lot more of stuff with this. Like you can see kind of what I was saying about like joinery work. Like with all the structure and this interior right here. Like you can see, especially on like the railings on the stairs there. And on the stairs themselves, you can see how it's joined. So it's not like... In fact, I don't think a whole lot was probably like... I mean, I'm sure there's some things like nailed or screwed together, but for the most part, with a lot of the stuff, especially the furniture, it was joinery work.
Yeah. Which is
very arts and craftsy in the traditional sense, like the British sense, where they're like, we're not going to use factory produced stuff. And I'm sure there's a part of that that's definitely a carryover. Because, yeah, with a lot of these, a lot of the materials are sourced from, like, nearby. Usually, at least within the state that it's built in. So, I don't know where this house is. It's probably in California
yeah,
somewhere.
I think it is.
So, it's probably all wood from California.
Yeah, this is from a specific famous example, and it's sort of like the 100% arts and crafts house that is like no holds barred. Everything is made out of wood, beautiful wood. Yeah, and the whole house is like this. There's a few pictures from the house. I'm glad you picked these out. Actually, I was gonna.
I don't know which ones are, because they're kind of shuffled, I feel like, from
Yeah,
the...
it's the stained glass windows are all from this house.
Let's see if we can find...
Like this I think this is pretty... This is from this house.
It's a crappy image.
Yeah, it's not a good image, but you get the idea. It's just...
Here, let's see. I think there's another one. Is this the same?
Yeah, that's...
It's a different one, but it's from the same house. Yeah. You can see the stained glass window work.
Which, what a super cool window.
There aren't enough stained glass windows. I feel like that's not really a thing anymore.
It's hard to do, probably. I don't know.
It is probably hard to do. People know how to do it. I think people forgot how to make a dang stained glass window.
It's just, it's just expensive. Because, yeah, people can do it, but...
I mean, also, you can't see out of the window. I guess there's that part, but... I mean, for example, if you had a window that was, like, facing something that you didn't care to see, like a window where it's just, like, you're looking at your neighbor's side of their house.
Yeah.
It's like, why not put a cool window there so any light that comes through at least looks neat? But yeah, I think I have more. Here's another one. This is like just on a window. Fancy wood.
Yeah, so this is like quintessential. Obviously, a lot of like, if you just have a cool looking bungalow in some town and you go into it, you probably wouldn't look any, if they were lucky, it'd have like a beautiful Craftsman interior, but it's unlikely.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is like the ideal.
It seems like back when they originally made a lot of these houses, it was probably not every time, but it's like somewhat common to like have furniture basically that go with it.
Yeah.
Like a big part of it is like everything's essentially like a cohesive whole of design, which it's almost like the complete opposite of the whole junk space thing when we're talking about that, where it's just like piling on of thing after thing, whereas the whole idea of, say, an arts and crafts home or structure or space is that everything is like tailored to it. So like a common thing, I think I have some images of it. Uh, okay, this is an example. Is there's a lot of like furniture that's actually like built into the architecture. So like in this case, it's a bench, just at the base of some stairs. But also a common one is like a lot of shelving, like bookshelves and
Yeah.
like Chinaware shelves will be like built into like walls or in like desk space or something. Like there'll be like desks built into the wall for, in like studies and whatnot, because it's like all goes together. Yeah, and a lot of cool tile work. You can see on here, this is like the joinery for the furniture, where it's just like literally like they run the posts through and then have like a wood wedge that they put through there. So this is like a bookshelf. It's a freestanding bookshelf. Why is it? Pinterest has some like really bad quality images. I wish it was a better image.
It's a cool room.
It is a cool room.
I want a room like that. Eliza could fill it with plants. If she had a room like that.
Another common thing is like kind of these exposed like some big beams on the ceiling.
Yeah.
My my grandma's house has kind of that going on. I think technically it's kind of a bungalow thing. Now that I think about it. I don't know how old it is. I feel like it was probably built definitely after the arts and crafts era, which is like what, like up until like the 20s or something.
Yeah, it's a pretty short time.
It's like 20 years.
Yeah, when the...
Because the first... So the name in the U.S. is the Craftsman movement. And it's named after Gustav Stickley's magazine called The Craftsman, which was first published in 1901. I learned that today. So basically, it's like probably about 20 years, roughly, where it was kind of a pretty big thing.
I went and looked at some
And then
BYU library once.
Mm-hmm. Some of the actual magazines?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
They're cool. They weren't even in like the restricted scary section. They were just like in the periodicals.
And I'd check them out.
Yeah, they're cool.
Because so the guy that did that, Gustav Stickley, him and his like siblings all did arts and crafts style furniture, but did it in the American way, where it's like at scale. And I learned today that because he had like his own shop, but then his brothers had a shop in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is interesting. Because I knew Grand Rapids was like, for a while, was like very well known for furniture. I didn't know that they were a part of that. That's kind of cool. And then I think the shop, I don't know when, at some point it like moved to like New York, and it's like exists still, but kind of not really. It's like it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
But they still produce furniture using the same designs. I don't know. Anyway, it's really cool furniture. I think
There's some.
so if you can see, this is kind of, these actually may be some of that. But
Yeah,
he does a lot of like these couches and stuff with like the slats on the side. A lot of chairs. Chairs and like sofas stuff. But they did all kinds of things. Eventually they started doing like lamps and whatnot. Let's see what else. Okay, I think this was that other door.
Yeah. Boy, go find the lamp. The lamp is super cool.
The lamp, which
It's around here somewhere.
dang slideshow. That's pretty cool. Yeah. I don't know if this is a stickly lamp, but I can't remember.
But it's a good example of like what they were like.
Mm-hmm. 'Cause I found a bunch of them. I didn't download them to put on here, but there are a lot of different things though that kind of are encompassed under this movement. So, like, there's a lot of like ceramic stuff too, a lot of pottery, tiles, vases, lamps, a lot of metalworking too. There's some cool like metal lamps produced. But yeah, a lot of tile stuff.
Makes me sad.
Also, a lot of them have really cool fireplaces in their houses.
Yeah, and that's kind of an interesting quick tangent. When you look at when you look at old houses, it's just there's no TV, so the fireplace is the center of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's kind of charming. I'd actually kind of want to do that someday.
Yeah.
Like you could have like a big, nice, comfy TV room downstairs, but then like have a room where everything
Your
is
living room is
like centered around the fireplace.
Mm-hmm. Fireplaces are pretty awesome.
Yeah. There's some of these, this is not just Craftsman houses, but just a lot of old houses, but there's some Craftsman houses that are cool where they've like built this whole like huge alcove around the fireplace.
Yeah. No, I remember, I think it was in one of those books that you checked out, had some of that in it. No, fireplaces are great. My house, growing up, we had like a really cool fireplace. It was like in the middle of the house, and it was 2 stories. So there's 2 different levels that had access, but then also you had access on each side. So technically there are 4 rooms with fireplace access. We didn't use it that much, and we only used it on the upstairs, but we used the basement one as like a secret tunnel. Casey went away. Can't. How dark can the light go? Wow. I think it needs a little bit. Playing around with lighting. I like it warmer. I like that.
And here I was gonna move a secret tunnel.
Yeah, I was saying in my house growing up, because there's just the 2 floors of fireplaces. But we'd only ever actually use the one upstairs. So the one in the basement, which I don't think we ever used. We just use it to crawl from one room to the other. Because it went through to another room. They're pretty cool.
Didn't you also have a conversation pit?
Yep.
Gosh dang it. It's the coolest.
That comes later in the grand scheme of architectural development.
Yeah, it's the pinnacle.
This is the greatest
everything
thing.
was leading up to the conversation pit.
And then we got rid of it.
Yeah. I want a conversation pit real bad. They're just
It's like an...
I don't even know if I've ever seen a conversation pit, not in like a picture. I'm trying to think of somebody's house. I don't know. I just think they're so cool.
Yeah, I've never seen one out here.
They're not cool, they're groovy.
Well, it's like a interesting way to basically delineate a room in a space without a wall.
Yeah.
Because like in my house, is like you had one, when you go in, it's like one huge room. There's a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen all in one room. But they're all separate because the living room's down in a conversation pit, and then the kitchen has like a built-in table that divides the dining room and the kitchen, and then the kitchen's tiled. But you can see all the way across. Mm-hmm. So it's like an really big open space. But each portion's its own room. It'd be cool, like a black, like velvet background or something.
Yeah.
With just like the light.
Or like beautiful stained wood. Craftsman wood.
I should just stain like a piece of plywood and use that. It would look nice. Make some really expensive thing out of some kind of fancy wood. I don't even know where you get like nice wood around here.
I don't know.
They're just like wood stores.
No.
Back home
sure
there
there
was.
are.
Back home there was a place. It was
There
literally
are.
just like a lumber yard that you could get all kinds of wood at.
Yeah.
I guess you could get scrap wood from the place over by your house.
Yeah.
And try and fashion something out of that.
So, that's kind of an interesting topic that goes along with this. I'm sure that when you're in the world of carpentry, then you know where these things are, and you'd be like, oh yeah, there's actually lots of them. But when I was building the bunk bed for my kids, I kind of was looking into different woods, and it was kind of hard to find. I did eventually find a place. I didn't use the wood from a fancy lumber yard, but it was like up in Salt Lake.
Yeah,
it wasn't like readily easy to find. Again, I'm sure if you were in that world, you'd be like, oh yeah, there's lots of them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. There's the same thing even farther back. Again, this whole ethos resonates with me. We were going to get a dresser. And we went to whatever the dresser store, the furniture place.
Like R.C. Willey?
R.C. Willey. I kept thinking Fred Meyers, and I was like, Fred dressers. Um, we went to R.C. Willie's, and I was like, man, all of these are just like made of like plywood with like a.
Pretty much.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed, and I thought I want something nice and real, and so my brother knew somebody who's a carpenter. He was like a journeyman carpenter, and we were gonna have him make it, and then he decided he didn't want to, so we actually never even got a dresser.
And to this day, you just have like a pile of clothes in the corner.
Well, to this day, we have an old used dresser that the shelves don't even like work, so they actually are just kind of hanging out because they're a pain to push back in. So we never got that dresser, but it's there was a similar sentiment at work with that, and with me making the bunk bed for my kids, even though my bunk bed is hardly a Craftsman beauty.
Yeah.
In fact, it's a big clunky monster, but it was a good lesson in just, in the fact that carpentry is actually like its own complex skill.
Yeah. It is, people get really into it. There's a lot to know.
Yeah.
And if you want to do it right, there's also a lot of specialized tools and technique that takes a lot of time and effort and money to get good at. Because also, like, nice wood is expensive.
Yeah.
Even just like the little bit in my van where I use some walnut for like some trimming. Just like those like little thin strips were so much.
Yeah, it's super expensive.
But it looks so nice. It looks really nice. But.
And that was the other thing is, if you just like try to go looking for a carpenter, I mean they're out there for sure, but it's kind of hard to find.
Mm-hmm. It's gonna be pricey too.
Yeah. Again, I think if you were to really look for a while, you'd like uncover the secret world
Mm-hmm.
of carpentry. But if you just like Google it, like at least when I did for the dresser, I remember initially I couldn't find anything.
Mm-hmm. You gotta know somebody.
Because it's kind of not like a commercially. I don't know. It's an interesting. That's an interesting topic that goes back to a lot of different topics we've talked about, but it's like this beautiful thing. But in the sorry, organizing my thoughts. It like can't compete with mass-produced stuff, which is okay because he's like doesn't have to, but that means it's like kind of hard to find.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you have to be like, or yeah, you have to know somebody that does it essentially.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like commercially viable to like for the masses
To make like really nice cabinets.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, something like IKEA exists as a way to have cheap cabinets, basically, that are suitable enough. Because, I mean, when it comes down to it, most people just like want the basic utility of a shelf or a cabinet or something or a table. But I mean, for example, with the stuff we're looking at, it's not about that. It's very much about having it be nice. And I mean, then there's like a whole philosophical thing to it too that has to do with, I don't know. I haven't researched enough into that aspect of it, but it's kind of like, I think I took a note, something around the idea. I don't remember what it was. It was basically sort of like, the idea was, if you live in like a harmonious space, like, and that's like aesthetically pleasing, like these homes are, the idea was like something like you would be a more rational person, which I don't know if that actually makes any sense, but
Yeah.
I could see there's like some sort of thing where it's like there's some sort of idea there. Again,
Yeah, I'm
I
not
don't know.
sure
I'd
if-
have to research more into it, but I know there is like philosophical things and like,
Yeah. You can see it though.
Yeah.
Maybe not the rational person thing. That sounds kind of silly.
I know,
That
kind
that
of
sounds very like turn of that century.
yeah,
Or
very from that era. I could see there being something where it's like, if we just did this thing, people would be more rational.
Yeah, they'd be like, if you contemplate the fine grain of the wood, you'd become a fine, rational being. I don't know. But my immediate thought was, I was like, oh man, if you were to live in a space like that, it'd just be kind of like soothing for the soul a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I mean, it definitely affects, like, the nature of the space that you inhabit definitely affects you. Even something where it's just like how messy
yeah,
something is, like,
that's kind of
so
like the baseline, like where you would like start if you were to like philosophize about it. You'd be like, well, think about how it feels when a room's like real messy.
yeah, and then how it feels once you've cleaned it up. I mean, my studio's a little bit messy. I'm slowly improving it, but for example, I mean, you can't see it on the camera, but just over there I have my tools for cutting and for drawing and all that, like organized in shelves and containers and baskets. And it, like, just doing that little bit of organization, like, drastically improved how I felt being in here.
It made you a fine, rational person.
Yes, it made me the rational man I am today. Before that, I was just a barbarian,
Yeah.
just acting on impulse.
Uh,
But there's definitely something to that. And again, yeah, I don't know if it makes you any more rational, but it definitely, like, puts your mind at ease. Like, just being in a space where there's clutter or it's just not clear what things are for, it kind of like stresses you out on like a subconscious level. And, looking at some of these things where, you have parts of the furniture like built into like the architecture where it's almost like forced to be orderly, would have, it's like harder to mess up, to make messy almost.
yeah.
Because for example, in this image, it's like a bunch of drawers and cabinets built into the wall, like under this window, and it's like, you can't like take that out. You can't move it to a different part of the room. You know, you're not like you can't mess it up as easily, right? Yeah, exactly. So there's something about that, and I think that it's like,
St- Still wouldn't stand a chance versus one single toddler.
yeah. Who knows though? Maybe I don't
Maybe,
know.
maybe, maybe it would
Maybe it
turn
would
the
make
toddler
them.
into a rational being.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other
That's the
element of it.
secret.
Now, just thinking of it, yeah, it's interesting. Cause yeah, Craftsman is very like. It's a very like organized look, especially this. This is like a excellent picture for this.
Yeah.
Uh. But then on the other hand, it's a very like natural look. As you know, since you're essentially just staining wood, ideally, and you're kind of letting all the idea is to let all of the natural patterns kind of like speak for themselves. I suppose that's my words.
Mm.
Who knows? I'm sure somebody go find those periodicals and look at them and see what they said. But it's what the I'm not sure who's which Asian philosophy, but Lee, which is the markings in jade, which is the idea that humans just really, really like the grain in wood, or like, you know, the markings in jade, or the patterns of rock. We just really like it. We like looking at it.
Yeah.
You know, a dancing fire, or like watching a river. All of that kind of like falls under this, but like natural patterns. We just really like them, and I think those are also kind of like relaxing to us. I think like just when I think of myself, like looking at, like if you were to be in a room that just like had a lot of beautiful wood.
Yeah. Versus, something I always notice is, for example, if you're in like somewhere, like in like a public bathroom, and you're like looking at the tiles, and you start realizing, oh, they're just like tiles that they printed with like a printer, like a texture on there, and then you all of a sudden you realize that every single tile is like the exact same tile.
Yeah.
And it like, for me, it like kind of bugs me. I'm like, this is like really weird. It's like I almost would have rather you just left it like a blank white tile. It's like, why are you trying to make it look like it's marble or something?
Yeah.
Or like granite. When like I can see like the little like stippling dots or whatever. What is that called?
The
I can't remember.
little printer dots.
Yeah, whatever that's called. I used to know.
I do not know the name.
But because it's not natural at all, so it's like you like feel cheated, almost. So yeah, there's something nice. Because also, I mean, it almost I'm trying to think how to word it. It imparts like a character to it.
Yeah.
Like you like as you spend time around it, you become familiar with all the like the grain and the knots and like the wood. And you're like, oh, I like very much recognize this door as like the door to this one cabinet specifically, because it has like a very specific grain that you see all the time, and you've had it like etched into your brain. And so if that's like applying to everything, it's like I'm sure like whoever lives in this house, I bet you like on this like front railing beam right there, whoever lived in this house or lives in this house is probably like has actually like at some point looked at that and like remembered kind of its pattern.
That's
Or like remembering like the pattern of the ones up like on the rafters and stuff. You just start to get like familiar with that.
yeah, that's a super interesting idea.
You know, because it's like this space you're always in. Same way, like, you know, if you like go on a walk in the same places, like you
Yeah.
get to be familiar with like the trees around there or like the all the little details. And be the same in your house. Whereas you don't get that if you just have like a flat white wall. It's like then your house just looks like any other house. There's no like distinguishing features to it, except maybe you'll be like, oh, I have a hole in my one wall where I elbowed it accidentally or something. I don't know. So there'd be stuff like that, I guess, but you know, like what really there's no like character to it if it doesn't have like kind of that fingerprint to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all kinds of things that like just naturally come up. Cuz even things like out in nature, it's like eventually it's like, you know, the sidewalk breaks up. Things happen that make it distinct.
Well, there's when you're when you're out in nature, not even you don't even have to be like in the woods, but like, you know, in a backyard even.
Mm-hmm.
There's like I don't know how, there's like a whole like depth of detail.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's very like rich. Like a lot of stuff is happening with trees and plants and stuff. I don't. Again, I'm kind of shooting from the hip, but it's like there's like a lot of like rich. It's like a very like there's like a lot of depth of detail that sometimes is lacking inside. Especially like you can have like inside can take on a lot of character too, even in like a cheap house furnished from IKEA like mine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like not quite the same. So thinking of this like these rooms, if they were like this, it'd almost be like almost have a little more of that like richness.
Yeah.
Like when you're outside.
Because, I mean, for example, in this room, like, even if you were to take out those rugs and the chairs and the little table thing, the, like, server or whatever you call that, it would still be, like, have quite a bit going on
Yeah.
with that floor.
But this place smells awesome too. I bet that house smells great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like the richness of a garden inside. That's my turn of phrase. I like it.
It's good.
Yeah.
Whereas the room we're in has, like, these drop ceiling and weird textured walls. It's like almost like popcorn walls.
Oh, it's like
It's not a very pretty room. Just a practical room.
it's like the that cool 60s house that I was telling you about, like that Jetsons house in Cache Valley, where the upstairs is like this really super cool all glass like atrium broken up by a couple walls into different rooms. It's super cool, and the living space downstairs was like this dreadful like this room you're in with
yeah.
Except for it was even worse because the drop ceilings were lower.
I know.
They
At
probably
least
added them.
I can reach this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like
8 foot.
yeah, it's like 8 feet. I can reach up.
I can't, because that's pretty much the standard. I can't remember, but the the Cool Jetsons house, the basement drop ceilings were like 7, maybe even less. They're like flush with the top of the door.
Oh, yeah.
It's bad. It's real bad. I don't know. It's
Well, when you're showing me pictures of it, it was like really cramped feeling down there.
yeah. You'd be like, here I am in my like beautiful open glass like groovy 1960s like atrium house, and you're like, oh, it's time to go to bed. I'd be like go down into like the bomb shelter.
Yeah. That was like tiny. I don't think, was it even like close to the same size of like the general floor plan?
I don't think so. Well,
It seemed like it was like a really tightly packed
I think it was,
grouping of
but the
rooms.
fact there were like 4 rooms downstairs and like a little like a little fat living room.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't remember. I don't I don't remember um the specific number for the master bedroom, but it was tiny,
Mm-hmm.
and the other rooms were like even littler. Like, so not only were it's kind of like it's just these like tiny little nooks.
Yeah.
I don't know, not it'd be weird. It'd be weird to, but it's kind of like the opposite feeling. Cause yeah, you would just be like living in like almost like a little like synthetic box.
Yeah. Because also on top of that, everything in that basement was like, yeah, just some manufactured
Yeah.
stuff
Oh yeah, like
from
again,
like the 70s or something.
yeah. Drop ceilings, which shouldn't be in anybody's house.
I hate drop ceilings. Terrible invention,
Functional invention.
I guess.
I feel like
But
there's this
a lot
through.
of times I'd like almost rather just have like exposed pipes
Yeah.
and stuff.
I think a lot of people our age would, because a lot of like places do that.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, whatever. Here's like the air ducts.
Yeah.
I think the feeling is shared with a lot of people. Whatever, it's like the through line from when we very first started talking about this, when you brought up that how convenience is one of the scoundrels.
Yeah.
I hadn't even never thought of that, and now I think about it
It's
all
like
the time.
imposing itself everywhere.
Yeah,
Taking over everybody's brains.
Yeah, things are convenient, and like all sorts of stuff suffers.
That's how you get drop ceilings.
That's how you get drop ceilings. That's how you get things not made with love. Which is a way you could describe arts and crafts.
Just making stuff with love.
Making stuff with love.
Like, where is it? Oh, I didn't make the...
Did not what something.
Oh, I did. Okay.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about the castle.
So we were looking at mostly at houses. But since arts and crafts is actually much more about kind of the utilization of material and the craftsmanship around it, it doesn't have to be just like a house. I mean, technically this is a house. So this is... What's his name? William Randolph Hearst's like mansion. Probably, I think it's like either in or close to San Francisco.
Rosebud.
Yeah. But the architect for this was, I want to say Julia Morgan. It's Julia something.
No.
But she's considered an arts and crafts architect because So like
So this is very different.
it's different. It looks like it's some kind of neoclassical revival thing, but the all this tile work and like you can even see with like these light fixtures, they're all things that were made by like local like potters and glass makers and stuff that she employed for producing everything. So it was all, well, I don't know all, but a lot of it was basically made from like local materials and made by like local craftsmen. At least some like from California or something. I don't know. I didn't look into it super deeply, but like the reason this is kind of in here is just an interesting contrast. Just as I was doing research,
But it like has the same.
it's the same ethos behind like how the materials and the designs were done. And you can even see like in this pool, so you know the rafter thing that was in a lot of those houses, you can see that in this interior pool. Also, I feel like this house is like, where is it? Yeah, so you can kind of see the rafter thing going on here too, except it's just tile. I feel like looking at images of this place, I was like, is this place like 70% swimming pool? It's like the exterior is like all swimming pool, and then they have this gigantic swimming pool inside. It's like all swimming pool. But yeah, you have a lot of it's this one that's like medieval theme because it's called the Hearst Castle. But you can see they have like these like big wood carved like relief things up on the ceiling. And then yeah, you have this. Whatever all this is. So it's kind of like mixing like a few like weird stylistic influences. There's like kind of like medieval Renaissance stuff, but then also like classical things. But made out of like Californian materials. It's very interesting.
Let's see. It makes me think of a thing. Let me look. I'm looking. I'm trying to find the name. But there's a. I got a book. Right, I checked a book out for the library like last year sometime, because I saw some of these cool looking, super interesting interiors, and I was like, oh, that's. And I saw I saw that there was like a book of them, and it's a specific guy,
Mm-hmm.
but um. Ali Dad. Ali Dad is his name. He's a designer. And they're cool looking, but what I discovered when I got the book is so Ali Dad is an interior designer for like the hyper wealthy.
Uh-huh.
And his interiors are super cool, obviously, but it kind of goes along with this in that these people have the money that everything is made beautifully and like by an actual artisan, and a lot of the book was talking about like the artisans he works with.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. That was almost the most interesting part of the book, was that these people exist who just there's somebody in the world who's like still a master of like doing like uh like giant chinoiserie, like those like painted walls
Yeah.
of like, you know, with super duper detail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I guess the point is, it was interesting that like those people totally still exist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, somebody's out there, you know, who makes like who makes like uh like beautiful diamond encrusted things with like the most beautiful of craftsmanship.
Yeah.
Because part I was like, what? That still happens? Yeah, it happens if you're like a billionaire. Uh, but the interiors, I just thought of this because it's kind of this along the same lines. Is that they're super beautiful and they're all like everything is made by hand by somebody by like these like elite artisans
Mm-hmm.
that do this specific like weird thing where you're like, I wonder how life led you there.
Yeah. It's like, how did you end up doing that?
Yeah, how did you end up doing like the most like beautiful like embroidery on pillows? But yeah, it's all like made by hand. That was the cool part of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, if you ever find yourself fabulously wealthy, you can have
You can have people make stuff for you.
yeah, you can have your entire swimming pool hand tiled by local artisans.
If you're William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah,
It's like,
you're like the
cause it's like,
1930s like gajillionaire.
yeah, you just have your pool tiled with like a million tiny little tiles. Some of them gold leafed. Which I mean, that's not that crazy. Gold leaf's not like insanely expensive, but if you like have that much, it adds up. It starts to get expensive. But again, if you're him, it's probably like nothing.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's probably yeah, kind of in the middle of nowhere. That's probably where you put like a
I mean, he
sprawling.
probably was like, I want it in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
And probably when it's built is probably even more in the middle of nowhere.
yeah. You're like sprawling Versailles.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's interesting thought though. Is like, cause I think there's like weird things like that where there's still people that they do these like old crafts that have been around forever. Then you think about it, it's like there's a point in time when there was like quite a few people that would have done those things.
Yeah, have I ever? Don't.
Careful.
Happens every time. I knew it too. I could feel it, but I got greedy.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I need that last little bit of tea. Yeah, have I ever talked to you about the rich lady's house slash museum in Virginia?
In Virginia?
Yeah, or it might be in DC, but I think it's in Virginia.
No.
Oh, it's some like 1940s aristocrat, 1930s aristocrat lady that had this big beautiful collection. That when she died, they turned her house into a museum, and we went and saw it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I've never seen such nice things in person.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost hard to describe, but like it's like a real Fabergé egg when you see it.
Yeah.
Like there's all the patterns and stuff, and you look closely and there's like patterns in the patterns, and then you look closely and it's like patterns in the patterns in the patterns. Like there's like tiny painted like scenes of like children playing on like snowy hills, and you almost need a magnifying glass to see it. And it's I had never seen anything like this stuff, like how beautiful it was,
Yeah.
like how intricate, not just because it's like it's not just like gaudy in that they were like, and we crusted this all with jewels, because like everything was just crusted with jewels, but a lot of it was actually like really really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Like like just she had a whole bunch of tea sets, and they just were all hand painted, and you just wanted to like sit and look at them,
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't just that you're like, oh, here's a tea set, like a little, and it has some flowers on it, but the flowers were like gorgeous, and you wanted to like lean in and like look at this, because some like master painter painted these teeny tiny little flowers.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was weird. I haven't it was kind of strange. Um Also, I guess she was super tight with the Romanovs, and so she had like her whole collection was like Russian stuff, and
Oh.
so everyone there like all there was a bunch of tours of just Russian people, and I didn't get it at first. I was like, why is everyone speaking Russian? But that is why, because she has like, I guess like the basically like the treasures of the Romanovs are hers or were hers.
I mean, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, kind of, we're kind of like, I don't know, it's just interesting. Uh, like the stuff that humans can make. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Kind of like far afield, but
I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the whole arts and crafts thing.
yeah.
I mean, like the original movement in Britain, a big part of it was like basically, the whole system of like guilds like died because of just like factory production.
Mm-hmm.
And so you had a lot fewer people in that sort of doing like being like professional craftsmen, instead of meticulously crafting like beautifully adorned like chairs. You just have like some guy with a lathe just running it through there, like a
Yeah.
steam powered lathe. And you're like, oh, it's good enough. We can sell like a bajillion of these chairs instead of like, I spent like a month on this chair and it's gorgeous. And at one point, instead of having like one guy who's like, I make great chairs guy, there probably would have been like hundreds of people who are like, oh, I can make a really good chair.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it starts to be something where it's like the scale and convenience of a cheap chair wins out
Yeah, and some
to
it's
the point where it like depletes the number of people that can do nice chairs. So all of a sudden, getting a nice custom made chair is suddenly like insanely expensive. Whereas at one point it would have been like, it would have been pricey, but it would have been like achievable.
yeah.
You know, somebody could save up and get like some nice furniture that would have been like handmade. Now it's like, well, if you have like a neighbor that can do it, I guess, and they like you. Otherwise, you gotta pay a lot. Anyway, that's crazy to think about too. Is like the ratio of like the amount of people versus just in general versus how many people know how to do stuff like that
Yeah.
is like way skewed. Because you think back in like the late 1800s, the beginning of the British arts and crafts movement, way fewer people, but also like relatively speaking, way more people that still could do that stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's like there's way more people, now there's way fewer people, like in absolute terms. I was also thinking about this too with with printmaking and how expensive like Japanese washi paper is. Kind of what traditionally would be used for printing.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. But then like when I was like reading about just stuff from back in the day, like when they do like the ukiyo-e prints, it's like that paper is used for like everything. And so I was like, there probably were like tons of people producing that paper. It probably was like the relative number of like paper makers to like the population would have been very high. It's probably pretty cheap, relatively speaking. Now it's like this extremely specialized type of paper. The only, I mean, probably I wouldn't be surprised if technically more of it's made because it's probably a lot more scaled up.
Yeah.
But still, like relatively speaking, the amount produced is less. I don't know.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Yeah, it's interesting the idea of um uh making something that is like really super beautiful and absolutely like inconvenient.
Yeah. But that's the thing is like if you want something that is like made with love, it takes time. It isn't convenient.
Yeah.
It's not a convenient thing.
Again,
You know, it's like
that's been kind of like the through line for me ever since we talked about it originally. When you first said that, kind of blew my mind. Because I was like, oh
wedding.
yeah, like, well, money's the scoundrel, money's the villain. Because when you have like commodity, or like a commodity. Oh my gosh, starting to get late. Commodity market, whatever. When you're like, we can build a gajillion of these and sell them, and we'll make a lot of money, and
Yeah.
it's cheap for the people, and suddenly a handmade thing can't compete in that like sphere. So I was like, oh yeah, money's the bad thing. But when you were like, oh, convenience,
It's actually just people's desire for convenient things.
Yeah,
that's the real secret problem.
yeah, it's
That's where the demand for that cheap mass-produced stuff comes from.
yeah, and you can see it once you like look, or once you have that idea. It's one of those that you just see everywhere.
Yep.
I mean,
Well, yeah, like when we talked about that, the example was like the wedding registry thing,
yeah,
where it's like kind of an insane thing if you think about about it, where it's like your interaction with these people,
your loved ones.
your loved ones, is like via Target. It's very bizarre.
Yeah,
Like when you really start like breaking it down, and you're like, well, why do we do that? It's like, oh, it's because it's easier.
yeah, your loved ones are essentially like, hey, I talked to Target. You go to Target. Target will take care of you.
Yeah, it's kind of.
And then you
It's
go to
really
Target,
weird.
and you get like this weird cheap garbage.
Yeah,
And you're like, it's okay, we're newlyweds. Like, it's okay if our stuff is like, oh yeah, because everything we got from Target was just essentially like plastic garbage.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's like one of those things where it's like it's just sort of the unsolvable problem because
Yeah.
it's something that it's like people have to like realize deep into themselves, and then you have to like fight that forever because you kind of have to. It's not like again because like the whole thing of trying to combat that in yourself isn't in and of itself inconvenient.
Yeah, and there's a lot of cases in which, like, for example, I like to cook a lot. If I make a meal that's made with love, it's oftentimes really good if I do a good job, right? But oftentimes we're like, man, I don't want to cook. Could you pick up a burger? And the burger's also pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like,
yeah.
it's like that. Like, you know, the burger and fries is also pretty delicious.
Yeah.
You do get to a point where, like, Madeline, my wife, had she got a bunch of, like, pot pies, like,
Yeah.
Marie Callender pot pies to eat for lunches for work. And I remembered those because I, like, grew up on, like, freezer food.
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, those were like top tier. And eventually she brought one home and I had it. And it was still like okay, but I was like, man, I kind of just don't want to eat one of these ever again. So like it does get to the point of like Hot Pockets and stuff where you're like where you like kind of feel your soul getting sucked out by it. But the burger and fries are still pretty good.
Yeah.
And I guess that could translate into a lot of things. It's kind of, I mean, we talked about this already. You're like, well, the sheets from Target are fine. They're pretty soft, you know.
Yeah. They fork.
Yeah, versus the sheets.
But you're not gonna like pass them down.
Yeah.
That nobody made them with you in mind.
Yeah.
Whereas at one point in time,
they would
your aunt would have been like, oh, I know how to weave a nice sheet and I'm going to embroider it nicely and gift it to you for your wedding. Now nobody knows how to do that. Well, the person that does know how to do it will probably charge you like $30,000 for the sheet or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there is one person still out there that can do it. But
whereas at one point, like, probably would have been like a common thing that
yeah,
people would have known how to do.
Yeah, everyone probably would have had their great aunt who would have been a pretty decent seamstress and could have like made you a nice sheet.
Yeah, that was, I mean,
so when I was telling you about that, because it was some video I watched forever ago about some person who like kind of collects these like old sheets. And the other funny thing is, I guess they're flannel, and what the other thing is, I guess they're stiff as a board when you first get in them, and then they're like the most comfy thing on earth. And I was like, I want to try one. I just want to try it, because they were like, at first you're like, why on earth did someone make a sheet out of this? Like when you first get in the bed, and then some magic happens and it's super comfy.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to try it. I haven't experienced that.
See if you can find some somewhere.
Yeah.
Go do some estate sales, see if they have them. I don't know. Well, I don't know where you get that kind of
I don't know. I feel like That's another like world you have to like if you're interested in it, it would like slowly like unfold itself to you.
Something you get really into sheet collecting,
Yeah.
vintage sheet collection. Just what kind of like weird collecting hobby you can get.
That's a pretty weird one.
It's a pretty good one.
Yeah.
It's better than a lot of them.
Yeah.
It's better than collecting precious moment figurines. Because it's like kind of a practical one.
The precious moments.
No, the flannel sheets.
I was like, yeah, they keep you company on a lonely night. You can like, you're like, they're sad, but they're also happy.
Yeah. Because, I mean, in a way, the art stuff I'm doing is like kind of the inconvenient way to do it. Takes more time and effort, and it's trickier. Because, like, for example, I'm doing these signs for work. I could do them just digitally and get them, like, printed.
Yeah.
And it would probably be faster to do. But, one, I like the challenge of, like, okay, I have to do an ink drawing and marker. And also, I don't totally know how to use markers. Mm-hmm. So, at the same time, I'm, like, learning as I go. Or doing, like, printing. Just, like, the lino cut printing is a lot of work, but it's its own kind of reward in doing it. Because it's like you care way more about what you're doing. Because you're way more considerate about your decisions.
Yeah.
You can't undo anything. You can't copy and paste stuff. You can't like lasso and transform anything. So it's like, okay, well, I really need to know what I'm doing. I need to like test stuff out. I need to do do very thoughtful sketches about how I'm like approaching things. Make sure like I can test some things with like texture or color. Especially with like these markers, I'm like, I don't know. Like sometimes they act really weird when you like layer them. So I've have all these like little scrap sheets of paper where I've like tested out on there. See how it works. But yeah, it's like, how willing are people to do inconvenient things just almost for the sake of it? It's not something you can just like sell somebody on, I don't think. It's kind of something you like have to like consciously go about.
Yeah. Did you like real arting it up all over the place?
I need to do more painting though. I keep meaning to do Thursdays as painting days, but I've been like end up doing other things. Right now I'm like really liking markers.
It's
The other day I was like, should I just get like a big set of Copics? But I was also like, no, I probably shouldn't.
maybe you gotta earn it.
Yeah, I have to earn the
once you've like really...
$500 like mini crate of markers from Japan.
Once you've really proven that you're a marker enthusiast. Yeah, I've had, with all this talk, I've had in recent months, like, the itty-bitty tiniest seed growing. That would be super cool someday to do, like, some, like, actual hand-drawn animation.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see if this grows into something in, like, 20 years. It might not. It might not, because that'd be so inconvenient.
It's like
But
inconvenient to the point where you almost have to have like to do anything of any serious length, you have to have like a crew of people.
yeah, yeah, animation's a strange kind of like, it's just so intensive that your choice is either you like have to have the factory full of people,
Or you're
or
gonna spend like 2 decades
yeah,
working on a project.
yeah. Um, yeah, filmmaking and animation. But the idea's just been like uh slowly growing in my head. Partially cuz I just look at like you look at the backgrounds of old, like just like the backgrounds of Snow White, these watercolor backgrounds, and they're so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
They're like so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, I just want to make something that has like a hand painted background in it.
Where it's like in Sleeping Beauty, like the Ivan Earl
Oh yeah.
backgrounds are so beautiful.
Yeah, those actually, those are the two that always kind of like sit in my head. Those exact two.
You're just like, oh my gosh,
Um,
they're really nice.
oh yeah, Sleeping Beauty's like, I don't know, might, in that sense, it might be like the actual greatest ever. I don't know.
Just as far as like the visual of it.
Yeah, just like the pure, yeah, like the small test like the old mill. I know. the the thought, which is funny because in order to make the old mill, like what would you? I mean, Cuphead did it. Cuphead made oodle. They have hand painted backgrounds. They have hand drawn animation.
Yeah.
They did it. It's not like a movie, but imagine what it would take to make the old mill. Just that. Because I've thought about it. I was like, what would it take to make like 20 seconds of animation?
A lot.
A lot. Part of it is that I don't have
Especially
any of the apparatus.
like the huge what was it, the multi-layer depth machine or whatever.
The multiplane camera.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
That
BYU
thing
has
is,
one.
where did they move it to now that the HVAC has been annihilated?
Yeah, it would. I don't know. Yeah, to make to make the old mill, because the thing about, I mean, I still make, uh, when I do animation for a lot of people, like I do like the lines, like I like ink things essentially, and I color them
Mm-hmm.
like on the computer, right?
Yeah.
But I still do a lot of that. But yeah, you just need like this army of people just like ink. What do you call it in animation? Are you still call it inking when you're doing the lines?
Yeah.
Inking? Are you inking?
I'd call it. Oh yeah, I think BYU had the didn't have a multi-layer camera. They had the
They have a multiplane camera.
did they?
Yeah.
Is that what that was?
Yeah, that was a multiplane camera.
I thought it was just the thing for
No, no. The Because you're
taking
talking about the
pictures.
thing that was sitting in the stairwell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a multiplane camera. They had like there was a little plaque by it. That was a legit multiplane camera that was used in the Disney studio at one point.
Yeah, where is that now?
I don't know. Maybe it's being
We
used.
should have tried to like convince the faculty to be like, we want to do a project that uses that.
Dude,
That would be crazy.
how do you? Because then there's we could. I feel like we could go too far into this, but like, cause you gotta like light it right, cause it's a camera.
Yeah.
Does it have like? Gotta figure out how to make it look decent. While I don't know, but yeah. We should have done. We should have recreated like the first shot or like the opening shot of Pinocchio or whatever. The like cost more than like that shot costs like more than like all of Snow White. Where yeah, you're like zooming through the city basically.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
inking, and then you gotta have people painting. And by people, I mean yeah, either you do it yourself. Yeah, yeah. There's probably like you set up the lights. You just know how. I don't know. I don't. That like reveals how much I know about animating. They're probably just like you know, I mean animating traditional animation. Yeah, because it's not like it's. I think I had my head kind of in like stop motion, where you'd like light it almost like a real. Where yeah, um, you like light it like a real scene, but you wouldn't do that with animation. You would just like when you're photographing it, you just have it lit a certain way so that you can capture the thing. I don't know. I've never thought of this.
It would have been so much more complicated too with actual film.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah, those people made that cool Christmas commercial
mm,
where it's like it's both stop motion and the 2D.
yeah, yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, that was super cool. Yeah, I don't know. But like I said, the idea is like ever so slowly growing. It may never amount to anything because I don't know how you but
How do you make it worthwhile?
yeah. Yeah. No,
You
you
should
have to
try doing like some kind of hand animation, just like a quick test, but I actually do it with film.
That's the thing is you have to know you have to figure out either you have someone who knows or you have to figure out that all on your own again. Dude, whatever. I've got my grandpa's old like Japanese Fuji camera from like 1940. It takes nice pictures. Oh yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, processing it. Would
Thinking
be
of the
insane.
all of the things involved that I've never even thought of, like the fact
Like
that you have to photograph.
every frame.
Yeah, and so if you're gonna do it, you have to know how to do that. Which you take the time, you just take a second to figure out how that works. But you're not just
There's
photographing
so
it;
many things that can
you're
go wrong.
photographing it on film.
Yep, and then you have to process the film,
Yeah,
and then you have to then transfer that to like the final like reel.
then you have to
Just it. Oh my gosh.
then you have to sacrifice a
Like
goat to Walt Disney's ghost.
when you really start thinking about like the original process for animation, it's like kind of crazy that anybody was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do this."
Yeah.
Like
Well,
the sheer amount of work involved and how like it could so easily go wrong at some point and like basically totally ruin everything.
yeah.
It'd be expensive too.
He's super expensive. Yeah.
No, I like. I mean, just I've never done like film, but I've done like just film photography. I think it's a lot of fun. But processing, I don't even know how it works, like processing
You send it.
like an actual like video film, not just like a still image.
Oh, yeah. There's like places you have to send it. Yeah, I took a cinematography class at the motion picture studio. Yeah, animation, it would be nuts. It'd be super nuts. But yeah, we took like we took like a couple seconds of, like, it was like 20 seconds of like, we filmed something, each student did, and then you have to, like, anything that in the world that's like filmed, there's only like a couple places that process it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to like mail it to California,
Yeah,
and you get it back in like 4 weeks.
yeah.
And I remember he said, we get a special educational discount, but if you don't have that, it's outrageously expensive. Yeah, they're like specific places that still like process film for you.
It's probably always been expensive.
Yeah.
It's like a really delicate process, especially when it gets into like color. That
Yeah,
I don't even know if you can do like. I'm sure you can like at home do like color photography, but even then, that's probably like really obnoxious.
Yeah. Well, I still probably animate on my computer for the time being.
It's nice and convenient.
Nice and convenient. Yeah. Doing like some legitimate real animation might be like taking the whole. It might be inconvenient to the point of like not completely not worth it.
It's like
Now that we're thinking.
so impractical. It's like kind of.
You know, somewhere there's somebody who's like totally geared up for it though. So that it's almost like you just have to find them.
Good luck finding them.
Yeah.
But it's like one of those things where it's like, it's like, what do you do with it? Like, just make an animated film, but why would anybody care about it any more than any other animated film?
Because you did it by hand, and so a certain group of people in the world would care about it a lot.
Most people would just be like, oh,
Oh yeah, nobody would.
just like a old Disney movie, except probably wouldn't be as good.
Yeah,
So-
that's the other thing is like, that
Like the stuff that you came before is like so out far of your capability to produce. Or like anybody's ability to produce.
that's the thing that's nuts. So think of this whole process, right? That we're thinking of, and how crazy it is, and then on top of that, you have like you have the 9 old men who have like taken it to like this, who have like become masters,
Yeah.
that they're just so good. I mean, I think there's probably actually like oodles and gobs of. It's kind of like we were talking about, like, at one point there would have been these people, these artisans who could have made like you a really nice chair. The world actually probably has a lot of like really, really, really good animators, like a lot of them now.
But would they be able to do that kind of animation?
Probably on. I bet they could do it on paper.
Because you definitely have to think about it differently when you're working with it that way.
But they probably could. I think you could.
They'd probably be able
If
to
they're
pick
good
it up.
enough, and I think there are a lot of really good animators in the world.
Yeah.
Like,
Probably.
because
I
never
train up a team.
Yeah, I watched a short thing on Cuphead.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that was like all pencil and paper.
Still though,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's pretty tough to produce something like the Nine Old Men.
Oh yeah, no, that's
It's
that's kind of like a one time in history kind of thing almost.
yeah.
Honestly, it would be easier to do something stop motion because they're just as far as like using animation to make something that's like all super detailed and beautiful and whatever.
Mhm. Probably.
Because people still totally do that. Maybe that's why over like I just the more I see stop motion, the more I think it's awesome. Except for I don't think I would ever want to animate that way.
I think it's kind of fun.
I've actually never done it.
It's
Weirdly enough, but it sounds kind of dreadful.
you just basically have to do like all straight ahead animation. You can't really like keyframe it.
Yeah, you plan it out beforehand.
Yeah.
Like you like draw the animation, but yeah,
Still,
yeah.
it's a lot of work.
It's the most I've like talked about animation with people in a long time.
Me too. I haven't thought about old timey animation in a long time.
My daughter recently, just out of nowhere, she was like, cause she watches she like watches a movie every day. And she was like, princess. And I was like, princess? She's like, princess. I don't know where she got the idea from.
Mm-hmm.
But, so yeah, I watched Snow White, and then another day I watched Cinderella, because she kept asking for princess, so I would play a different one.
Mm-hmm.
And Sleeping Beauty, and Princess and the Frog. I think that's all we watched. But the moral of the story was, yeah, so that kind of like, I hadn't seen any of these I mean, who's seen Cinderella? Like,
It's
since they were like a kid.
So long.
Like, who's seen that? I feel like it's late, but I've 10 like little anecdotal interesting things. Both Snow White, actually all three of those old ones, they're kind of like they're kind of like a collection of like little shorts, which actually was how Snow White was pitched to Walt Disney.
Mm-hmm.
One of his animators was like, "Hey, we make shorts all the time. What if we just like throw a couple together and it's a movie?"
Yeah.
And Walt Disney was like, "Wow, that's a good idea." But like, it's basically like there's like a little bit of princess time, and then there's like a shenanigans section with the dwarves,
Mm-hmm.
or in Cinderella with the cat and the mice.
Yeah.
And then there's like a little princess moment, and then there's like another shenanigans section.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a collection of like shorts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Sleeping Beauty was kind of similar, except for there wasn't like I guess it was like a funny section with the fairies, and then like a little like bit of the story, and then like a funny section with like the little good fairies.
Mm-hmm.
But all of them felt very like segmented,
Yeah.
because the little like funny sections were really long.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, it makes sense with the way
Yeah.
it's all kind of like what they would have been used to doing. Also, it's probably just easier to work with narratively.
Yeah.
Just break it up like that. Especially like thinking about the process. If you do like a scene and you're like, this doesn't work, it's a lot easier to just be like, okay, we just don't do that one.
Yeah.
Because everything's like basically these like little chunks of scenes that almost could be rearranged. However, like there's important ones that matter, but pad it out with a lot of like silly scenes. If a silly scene's like kind of falls flat, you're like, oh, or it's not working, just be like, well, we'll cut that one out.
Yeah.
Do something else, or just not have it.
So yeah, I also. No, that makes sense. I also had not given any thought to this kind of stuff until, yeah, just start like showing them to my daughter, and I hadn't seen any of these since I was, who knows when I had seen them.
Yeah, I like probably haven't seen Sleeping Beauty since I was like 10 or something.
Yeah, it was super super pretty.
Yeah, I've looked at a lot of background and like stills of it since then, but I haven't sat down and watched the whole thing in a long time.
Yeah, the sections take their sweet time. Like when the kings get drunk, the kings are like planning the futures of their kingdoms and they get drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And these are all playing, my daughter's watching, and I'm like half watching it as I go about doing chores.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember the scene started and I like went in the other room and I was like, I don't know, who knows what I was doing, just like getting laundry ready, like moving stuff along. I was out of the room for a while and I came back and I was like, this section is still going? I was like, how long are the kings gonna get drunk? Yeah, like you said, like the silly section.
Yeah.
But and there's the same, like when the dwarves are washing their hands for dinner in Snow White. I was like, how long is this? It's like its own like little mini like comedy short. But yeah,
it's dragging it out.
The also the other observation was I remember in college occasionally people were like, oh, who's like the best Disney princess, like what Disney princess would you date? And everyone would always be like, Belle, she's smart. Right? Nah, man, Cinderella, she was in a bad situation and she was very nice. She's like kind and long suffering.
Yeah.
Just watching it, I was like, she's being a champ. Because this stepmom is sinister. I was like, if she can deal with that, she could like roll with punches.
With anything.
She could have a.
Everything else will be easy.
Yeah, she's gonna have like a happy life. Whereas Belle was like, wah, I'm not happy where I am.
I hate this little town.
Yeah. That was my other observation. Again, I hadn't probably seen Cinderella since I was, who knows, just a little kid, and I was like, she's a champ. Oh.
Yeah, Belle and Ariel are both like.
Oh yeah.
Whining about.
Ariel's the worst.
Yeah, Ariel's like, my dad's literally king of the ocean, and I just want to not be in the ocean anymore.
She's like the mermaid equivalent of like a furry. She's like, I'm really into legs.
Cinderella 3. I didn't even know there was a 2.
I think I saw years ago. I saw someone made like a funny video about Cinderella 3, about how it actually is like kind of a good movie.
trying to think
I vaguely remember that.
I don't even know how you'd have sequels for that one.
I don't.
They figured out how to have at least three of them, or at least 2 sequels. I didn't watch many of like the sequel things, like the straight to
Yeah,
VHS.
because they were terrible. Even as a kid. I mean, by the time they were coming out, we kind of weren't kids. We were a little older.
Some of them were coming out when I was...
I guess...
Depends. It was like kind of right on the edge.
My siblings had Atlantis 2, which was actually kind of interesting. It was like not a movie. It was like a collection of like short stories about the various characters. So that was kind of interesting. It was like 3 or 4 like short film or short stories. And they had Mulan too, which was horrible.
Yeah, like what? Yeah, like
a lot of them.
I don't even know what happens in Mulan 2. Again, I haven't seen like any or have had like a desire to see like any of those.
No, it's like the live action remake.
I have even less of a desire to
spiritual equivalent in like the late 90s, I guess.
I have even less desire to see the live action ones, honestly.
Yeah, because it's like at least one of these terrible sequels might be kind of...
There might be something new there, at least to get out of it. And who knows, maybe it might actually be okay.
And The Fox and the Hound too, it's like they're sad again, I guess.
They're just still sad.
I don't know, because that... they still can't be friends.
No, the live action.
But
stuff
it's like the... But yeah, it's like the spiritual equivalent. It's like the same idea.
Pretty much, yeah.
Except like, how can we like milk this thing?
The next thing will be is they'll make live action sequels of reboots of the sequels. And they'll be straight to Disney Plus.
Straight to your brain. Yeah, straight to...
Won't even be in a theater. It'll just be like Beauty and the Beast 2 live action. Exclusive on YouTube.
Oh yeah, extremely goofy movie. That is a fun movie. I've seen that.
You know,
goofy movies, like one of those.
It's a good one.
Yeah, Funny Anomalies, where it's like just essentially to promote Goof Troop, I think. But it's actually like a pretty great movie. I think.
Something like that.
I have a great much trivia. Cinderella 3. Yeah, I've never seen it, but yeah, I remember someone made like a humorous video. I saw it like back in college. Yeah, I never watched any of those. Because I think everything got the treatment.
Pretty much.
Because I remember passing through, and my little sister was watching... Little Mermaid 2, in which the villain is Skinny Ursula.
Skinny Ursula?
They were like, who should our villain be? And they're like, what if there's like another exact same thing, same villain, but she's skinny, I guess. I guess there's Rescuers Down Under. That's like kind of in a different tier. That's like that was like a real movie. Not like a money grab attempt.
Yeah. Because yeah, the whole straight to home video thing was straight up just a let's milk this stuff.
Yeah.
Not actually like a sincere attempt to filmmaking,
Yeah.
which is not any surprise that most of them aren't terrible. It's to be expected from that sort of a thing.
Maybe we'll have to watch each one
Ugh.
with commentary till we learn to appreciate.
Just watch terrible animated movies. Like Food Fight.
Like,
I can't believe I've seen that movie like 4 times.
how have you seen that? I've never seen that movie once.
I've seen it so many times.
See, I can't do it. I can't do movies like that.
It's pretty excruciating.
I like.
So,
I can't watch.
you have to watch it with people. You can't watch it by yourself.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be like.
That would be actually torturous. It's fun, like watching it, and you have to watch it with a different group of people each time.
Because the previous group has died.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Rescuers, like Phil just said, that's like a sincere movie.
Yeah, they actually like cared about
That's like a real movie.
the craft in that one instead of
Yeah.
just like, let's just make another movie with Belle in it, I guess.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't make any sense that there would be a sequel. Because like a lot of them is like, oh well, it concluded.
I think a lot.
So it's like what?
So
what-
now that you say that, I think a lot of them
Like what?
take place kind of like intermittently, where they're like, and here's more of the adventures they had
Yeah,
while
I
they were
guess.
in the midst of the story.
I guess.
I think that because when you say that, I think that's what happens in Beauty and the Beast too.
It's like,
I
yeah,
think
what happens while Bella's hanging out with the bees.
yeah. Oh yeah, Rescuers. I think Rescuers did use some 3D. I don't know if is that what you're talking about. I think he's right.
I think that is
That opening
correct.
sequence where that flies over the fields
Mm-hmm.
with the sweet music.
Yeah, I don't know. First 3D animation ever. Oh man.
Yeah, we are. Maybe. Oh, it's almost 1. I mean, it's been fun to chat about, but it might be time to go.
Yeah, I have work in the morning.
I
don't have work until later, but
I have children that are gonna wake up. Hopefully, my. Okay, I got. I did not know it was 1.
right. Well, we
Bye,
talked.
Liza.
We talked about the stuff.
Yeah, we talked about.
You learned about.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was called like the Magical Winter or something. Again, I haven't seen it, but my sister's probably seen
There's
most
probably
of
a
these.
snowball fight in there. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
All right.
I got it.
Casey's chugging his water before he has to run.
Never know the next time I get to drink water. Okay, bye.
Goodbye.
I have children. Yeah, and one of them is going to be waking up like right now.
The organ is the villain.
And if I shove a bottle in his mouth right in the nick of time, there's no problem. But if I don't,
Then there's no sleep.
then there's no sleep.